To this computer.
All right. Hello, this is welcome to the select board meeting for Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. It's 6:03 and call the meeting to order. And first off, I'd like to have a moment of silence in memory of Bonnie Horn, who passed away in this past week. Okay, and now is there any public comment? Seeing none?
Nope.
Oh, sorry, you did. I apologize. You were hiding behind the.
Yeah, I just want to talk about making or think about making designating Martown Road for an ATV access road.
Okay,
And so I just.
The camera's adjusting, Bronwyn, it's almost there.
We got
Do
you.
I need
There we
to-
go.
Yeah.
No, he moved again.
Yeah. And I'm Tom Sheehan, by the way, for those of you.
He's on the move. Okay.
So I did bring some information which I got from the state of Maine.
Yep.
Just so you guys can review it, and I'm sure you probably have other information. But I know as part of the designation, the state requires that the roads be safe. And so I brought a picture of a regular pickup truck, and you can pass those around. And what a side-by-side ATV looks like. And as you can see, they're much narrower.
Yes.
And they're much more nimble. So if you had, like on Martown Road, which is not a heavy traffic route by any means, you can easily get two trucks by now. So with the side by side, it's pretty easy. And the reason that I asked for this is because we maintain property. Some of you know, Joyce Oliver's land, and with Jason Lang, and then the Sadia Crosby and Lisa and all those people, and we cut wood for them. So going from one place to the other, when we're on the side by side on Martown Road, there's no houses for about a mile. And on one side, it's a huge bank, and the other side, it's just a steep drop off. And so we're just trying to be able to get from one point to the other legally, so there's no issues moving forward. And safely, because we can do it now, we go through the woods in different places on trails. But when you're pulling a splitter.
Right.
And you have a buggy full of wood that you just split, when you're going sideways on a hill or down through a ditch, it becomes, sort of treacherous for us,
For sure.
so.
It's on our.
And I
list.
encourage anybody, like if anybody wants me to show up at another date and go through the map. We can show you from my house. We have two houses on Martown Road, and from one of them to the entrance way onto Oliver's land, there's not another house in sight between the two. And then from Joyce Oliver's land to Lisa Crosby's land, there's three houses. And all three are fine with it. I mean, they encourage it, and they actually have ATVs or side-by-sides. So,
Does this designation, does it just apply to the access for this kind of work? Or is it like a trail designation? Bob says my audio is falling in and out, sorry. Or is it like a recreational vehicle kind of designation?
it would be an ATV designation. That's the way the state looks at it. So it would be a.
Anybody with an
It
ATV?
should- Yes, but so the difference being, like in northern Maine or on the islands where they designate it, they have huge trail systems.
Right.
And
Right,
here we don't. Here we got private landowners where we try to help them, and they help us by letting us use their property. So somebody from away from here could just show up and run down the road because you have no place to go.
gotcha,
I mean,
okay.
literally, you have
He's
no
not,
place
he's
to
not
go.
gonna come out of the woods and drive
There's no place
on.
to park. I mean,
Yeah,
there's-
okay.
Yeah,
So it's not like it wouldn't be a vacation destination, all of a sudden people showing up on side by sides. It's a 2 mile stretch. And in the past, I mean, we've used it for years, and we're just would like to clean things up so it's legal and there won't be any issues in the future and make sure everything would be
Okay.
clean and safe.
And I planned on mentioning this when we get to correspondence, but while we're having the discussion now, it's timely. I did reach out to MMA and inquire whether or not this had to be a town meeting vote, as some
Right,
things
that was my
are,
question.
versus whether or not it rests with the select board. And MMA, and I can get the little blip it off to everyone, actually says this is not something this board can delegate to town meeting. This is a decision by statute where it's up to the municipal officers. However, if the board were to go in the direction of wanting to make this happen, they would first need to have a determination about the safety and vehicular traffic. In talking with John earlier today, we believe that'd be a call to Charlie as road commissioner to get his official opinion on what would need to happen. And then if it meets the mustard of being safe, then the town would also just need to provide signage that we'd have posted, we could fit into the budget.
So,
So,
and I'd provide the signage. So that wouldn't be any expense to the town. So I'd take care of that. And I know other towns too, which is another thing to consider, do it. They'll say, we'll do a 1-year trial. And with a 30-day out on either side, where you say, you're doing it and 30 days later, we don't like what you do, we wash our hands of it. So it's not, we're not looking for a permanent, I mean, we wish it would be permanent, but I mean, we just want to do it safely and legally.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank
this
you
is-
very much.
and it is
Yeah.
something that this board could revisit at a later date, once folks now know in the public that this is an
Yeah.
idea for discussion and, you know, see what
Yeah.
steps this board might need for information to make that decision.
Right, and probably 80% of the time that we ever use the road with an ATV is after the summer people leave,
Right.
right? Cause in the summertime, everybody's on a boat out doing something. And it's too hot to be cutting firewood and
Right.
clearing trails, and springtime, it's too wet to be in there, cause you'll ruin the land. So, usually there's some folks are home and it's on my road, it's me, the Coulses that live past me.
Right.
Trying to think who else lives past them. That's it. And then you go up and you got 3 people. Laney, Ryan Pearl's house and,
Vinny.
and Vinny.
Vinny's got side by side.
And Vinny's got side by side. So, and we all cut wood together and everybody takes care of everybody.
That's what it's about, taking care of each other.
100%. Yeah,
We should all have side by sides.
Yeah.
you should,
I mean,
trust me.
I know.
Better for the environment, 1 cylinder versus 8,
Yeah.
uses less fuel, less emissions, better for the land.
A lot of
I mean, I
fun.
could go on forever.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
fun. I'm with you.
Well, a lot of towns in northern Maine, downtown Greenville, Maine, street lights and all, you're allowed to ride your side by side right down the middle of the road. But in the lane.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So anyways, and if anybody has questions or you want me to go through the map for anybody and explain it to you, the town map for the property maps and show you the terrain and any questions, I'd be happy to do it.
Well, thank you. We'll, obviously talk about it and,
Sure.
see what the next step will be after this. So,
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
evening.
You too. Take care.
Any more public comment? I don't see any. Cool.
All right. Under items to be added to the agenda, the only item that I would be adding is a letter from Pam Gunnell that we'd be adding to our list of correspondence for the minutes. I failed to add that this week. We had no scheduled appointments, so the next item up would be the minutes of the October 29th meeting for review and approval.
Move to approve.
Second?
All right. All in favor?
3-0, perfect. In your digital packet, we provided an updated permit listing as well as the October hauling numbers. In terms of assessing items, there's nothing on the agenda in this spot tonight because we will be tackling the mill rate a little bit later. In terms of correspondence, again, there is that letter from Pam Gunnell that'll be included in the minutes. We also received, by way of State Representative Allison Hepler, an early copy of the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation and the Future's Infrastructure Rebuilding and Resilience Commission's interim report. I can tell you I started reading that, but it's about 200 pages long, so we'll give you a book report in the future. The Saginaw County Sheriff's Department incident report was also provided. The Georgetown Volunteer Fire Department, I don't want to steal the thunder of the chief, who will be speaking a little bit later, but we'll be having a an informational discussion at Georgetown Historical Society on the 5th of December. There was a citizen request from Tom Sheehan, and I will omit summarizing that because he did a better job than I could just now at public comment. Riverside Disposal sent along some informational material regarding services offered. Efficiency Maine also did a similar item, and New Hope Midco sent along a funding request letter. And I will just note, we did receive one from Honor Flight as well over the last week, but post agenda, so that'll be on the next one as well. There was no item of other correspondence or continuing items, and I can jump on down to committee updates. And I do want to just let board members know as well on future agendas, unless folks object now, I am going to combine the liaison and board member updates, because frankly, in the last year, I get to board member update and we always say next. So for what that's worth.
All right, liaison. I had one of the planning board meetings, and they're working on seeing what's, they're starting to scratch the surface on the,
STRs,
SDRs, yes.
short-term rental.
Short-term rentals, and it's still even a matter of figuring out the questions. To what we are even gonna be asking at this point, you know, what we're looking at, so it's still in the very, very preliminary stages for them. And beyond that, I really haven't done much of anything, meeting wise. From the last time, so.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John before we jump on to the next member of the board? Seeing none.
Okay, the the Conservation Commission met. They're going forward with the grant, working on the grant with the RASIC about water quality and quantity. And I gather from Tyler's message earlier this evening that Jessica will be reporting on that, so I won't go into great detail except to say that the state hydrologist attended the Conservation Commission meeting and was a font of information about what questions we could hope to answer with the kind of a study that we're talking about, and other issues like that. They had a very strong response to the emergency preparedness presentation on Zoom. There were 60 people, I think, signed on. There were no questions at that time. There was a huge amount of information presented. And I hope that we'll be able to follow that up with some more localized information and an opportunity to give local residents a checklist, a list of resources that are available to them here in Georgetown, because I don't think that we've done a comprehensive informational presentation like that, and there seems to be a lot of interest. The Conservation Commission has a winter potluck, scheduled, I think it's the 21st of January, at the community center, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that. The Solid Waste Committee also met, and while the cameras indicate a slowdown in the number of intrusions into the space when it's not opened, there was one concerning issue where somebody entered the transfer station just before Rogers showed up to empty the dumpster. And so there's a serious safety concern. Nobody should be in the space when the big truck and the hauling and all that is going on. And he doesn't expect to see anybody there because it's supposed to be closed. So if you're listening tonight, whoever you are, please don't do it. We voted on the schedule. They voted on the schedule for the calendar of the transfer station in 2025. And Tyler shared that I'm looking for my copy, shared that information. Transfer
Yeah.
station 2025 calendar. This closely resembles the previous calendar. And there was I think Aria had suggested, somebody suggested we might not want to open on October Indigenous Peoples' Day because the traffic was very slow this year. And while that's true, it was also a very rainy weekend. And what the board recommends is leaving that date as an open date because it always has been, on the assumption that cottages were closed that weekend and people had a lot of clearing out to do. And monitor the traffic this in 2025. And if it's still very, very slow, nothing's happening, then close it in 2026, but not to close it this time. Tyler, when we send this out in the tax, with the tax information, I would suggest that we include 2024 dates for Christmas, Christmas Eve, New Year's, because I believe we're closing early on those dates
Right.
this year as well. And since the bills are going to go out this month, it would still be relevant for people to see that. And so if there are questions or concerns or suggestions for changes from the board.
So,
Yeah.
and real quick, just to confirm, we're talking Christmas and New Year's of this year to fit onto that.
In
Okay,
that mailing. And just for clarity, I don't have I think there was sounds like there was a bit of a miscommunication about the Indigenous Peoples' Day. I don't have a problem with it being open there because I know that that falls during the time cottages being closed. I was concerned, earlier this year when it was open on Easter and, folks were working on Easter and everything else was closed on Easter. And it didn't seem fair to me, to the transfer station staff, that they would have to be there when you had all major stores closed.
That must have been because Easter comes on a Sunday.
Correct. And so I
Well-
was just asking for some flexibility for the select board to reach out to the solid waste board and say, can we be flexible and not make our community members work on major holidays like Easter, Christmas, when they, or at least shorten the hours so they could be with their families. Mother's Day is another one of them. And obviously some of those are Sundays. We don't have a lot of major holidays on Mondays. Sometimes we do, but that's really my concern, just as a person who cares about people and their family time.
Okay, that was not conveyed particularly in that format, but I
Sure.
would say that the understanding of the Solid Waste Committee is that we are talking about legal holidays. Easter is not a legal holiday. It happens to be a
Right.
Sunday, so the post office already isn't open. But there are a lot of other religious holidays that one
Right.
might wish to honor. And I think that those are honored to the staff if they request the time off. I would, whether it's, depending on who's working for us, Easter, Hanukkah, one of the African holidays or Islam, we can't accommodate all of those. What we're talking about on Monday holidays, and that's been the tradition, that the dump is open Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, and designated Monday, holiday Mondays. So the reason that we're listing it closed on Martin Luther King Day is because that's a Monday holiday. And some people might assume it would be open. But I think in recent years, the number of open holidays has been significantly reduced. And that may be a consequence of the fact that people's work schedules are very different. And a lot of people don't get those holidays, or they don't work a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job. But in terms of, if we want to change the policy significantly, then we need to deal with going beyond legal holidays, designated national legal holidays.
Right.
Just in terms of, I think this is a good discussion to keep going. In terms of the notice that we typically, and I say typically, we did last year. on the
Hello
reverse
there.
of our-
Goodbye.
So what I was thinking, the way I've kind of teed up the notice this year is to list the transfer station will be open on Memorial Day, Labor Day, Indigenous Peoples' Day, and New Year's Day. For the Sunday holidays, which sound, Mother's Day, Easter, things that are very important, maybe we could come back and just have a second, not a mailing out that we're closing those days, but we have enough tools at our disposal that I think by Mother's Day, Easter, we can have that discussion about the broader policy and not feel like we're under a crunch to get it onto a notice, because that is a little bit different.
Yeah. Sure.
Does that kind of make sense? Because I didn't even
Sure.
think of Mother's Day, Aria,
Well,
that's one that, yeah.
I know, my idea is unpopular, but.
But Mother's Day, Father's Day, Easter Bunny Day, how many I mean, maybe we shouldn't be open on Sundays, but then some people worship on Saturdays and some people worship on Fridays.
For sure.
I just don't think it's workable.
Yeah, I can see that being, yeah.
John's
Yeah.
John's worried. Don't blow it up.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's a worthy discussion.
Are we good with at least for what was put together to get that out on the notices?
Sure.
Okay,
For what you were attempting to do, yes.
Yeah.
thank you.
Like you said, there's many avenues to correct it if we need to
Right,
correct it, like,
right.
Yeah, but I think Brahma's got a really good suggestion with making sure we get the ones that are just coming up next month for the
Right,
next few months
absolutely.
on that list.
And I can make it fit.
Yeah,
Thankfully, I
for
make
sure.
font big on the first draft and then I shrink it for second draft.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bronwyn. And I believe we still have.
Oh, yeah, so, let's see, the rec committee's got a couple of different things going on here. We did some tipping on, what was that? Saturday, we were out on Kennebec Point tipping trees with, John Hentz and some of us from the rec committee. The wreath making party for anybody out in Zoom land that may want to join us, or any of y'all, is gonna be at John Hentz's house on Friday at 6:30. So we are actually this year making the community wreath that's gonna go down on the wharf, ourselves. And so we'll see how that goes, and, that'll be hung later on with Frank McDonald's help, probably right after it's made. And the holiday, on the wharf is December 4, which is a Wednesday. And that flyer you've got out, the flyer should be around and in the various media outlets. Santa Claus will be there. We hope that he'll be brought down by the fire department again in their generous, Chief Whalen's generous time offer there. And, pickleball is squarely in the gym at the school, so we appreciate the school loaning the space again to the community for pickleball on 10 o'clock on Sundays. And school committee meeting is tomorrow at school, and it's a hybrid meeting. I think that's it for my committee reports.
What time on the 4th is that?
The 4th, thank you. The 4th, the holiday on the wharf is at 4:30 to 6 o'clock. Santa arrives around 5. There'll be bonfires this year again, treats, hot chocolate. The Georgetown Jammers are playing, so we have some live music, which is great. So we'd love to see everybody there.
Thank you, Aria. Any
Thanks
questions?
for asking.
And if not, I will jump into my town administrator update. The first thing I just wanted to mention was that Georgetown was in the news last week. John Hentz was on Channel 6 regarding his honor flight experience, and anybody that wants to watch the video of John reminiscing, I can send the link. It's awesome when we make the news for good things. I also wanted to mention that the emergency communications tower leases now have been signed by the town and the county. We're currently awaiting a time for the landowner lessor to come in and sign. And then once we have had that happen, I'll disperse final signed copies amongst the board, and obviously anyone in the public that would like to read those is more than welcome. There are no secrets. In terms of ARPA, I wanted to let folks know that I have been soliciting quotes on the doors.
Good.
I spoke today actually with AOS 98's facilities director and the Topsom town manager for some recommendations on who they might think has done this kind of work. I've connected with PDQ Door out of West Bath, and they'll be coming down next week to investigate. Midcoast Glass, Portland Glass, and some others have been reached out to, and we're trying to get in the queue. My plan, one way or the other, is to bring the gathered quotes to the board for our December 3rd meeting. That way we have time in the month of December to finalize out that paperwork. In terms of the conference room retrofit, Ari and I will be connecting regarding some chairs.
Yep.
And I will have for the December 3rd meeting, a recommendation for a table, as well as a recommendation for a wall mount to finalize that, get it done this year and start the new year right. The reason I've held off on the table truthfully is I've just been waiting to see the chairs because
They're black.
that is helpful. And I
Yeah.
think once we know that the chairs will work,
Yep.
then that gives us a little more of a budget to get a bigger table.
They're
So,
more comfortable than these chairs, sorry, y'all, and, they look like an office chair, but I will send a picture tomorrow and then get one down here.
awesome. And Bob Trebona is working on the FAC budget process memo for a future select board meeting. And in regards to tax bills, I sent along today what I'm calling the freeze letter that I'm hoping to have, with your blessing, sent out to the 99 families that were property tax stabilized. And I also sent along a letter that is the insert letter that's going to all residents explaining the statistical revaluation, and the reverse side would be similar to last year: holiday, election dates, town meeting, and pertinent info. I did not send that along because I was playing along with it for most of the day. And I can get you a copy, Bronwyn, but it's effectively the same template from last year, new dates. And I did send these along to Bill Van Tynen, and Bill did not have any changes he suggested. He said he couldn't have written the letter better himself, which I'm just gonna say because it was nice to have a compliment from Bill Van Tynen on this very dense assessing subject, so.
Yes.
And with that, I would just lastly mention that the coastal convening regarding preparedness is gonna be tomorrow in Bath. And Georgetown has a great crew representing them. The Conservation Commission will be speaking on behalf of Georgetown with some of our resiliency projects. EMA Director McDermott, Shellfish Warden Hentz, myself will be there, and I will report back on findings and future stuff. Any questions on yes, Bronwyn? Oh, you are muted.
Yes, I did that. Sorry. In regard to the letters to go out with the tax bills, I have a few tweaks to offer. I'll share them with you tomorrow, and you can like them or not like them in terms of the wording. Certainly the content is what we need to convey, but I do think it's a little confusing when you're talking about last year and this year and next year. What year is that? That, people get confused. I got confused. The other question I have is that in the letter to the 99 families who applied for and qualified for the property tax freeze, it says that that you'll be seeing a 2-year increase in your taxes. I assume, they're not responsible retroactively for last year's tax.
There
It's
is
just
no
that their tax it will look larger to them because
Yes.
they didn't see an increase last year. So that's another point I think that we could clarify a little bit. Because when I read it, I thought, oh gosh, that's a 2 times increase. But I realized that's not what you meant.
So,
We have to
absolute-
remember that most of the world is not as focused on law changes and years of whether we're talking calendar year or fiscal year either. Obviously, the taxes are fiscal year, but here it is the end of the calendar year.
Right,
So when we talk about last year,
right.
that, what does that mean? That's all. But thank you for the work in drafting them and for the information they contain.
And
That's
I
all.
missed this, Tyler, but my recollection when we were doing our budget hearings is that when we say you may notice an increase on your tax bill this year, this is the third paragraph. This is due to increased spending on the county town. School budget actually was 0.09% decrease this year from last year's budget.
That might have been a decrease, but it wasn't a decrease in your allocation to the school.
In
The
the
budget
allocation.
might have gone down a little bit, but
Okay.
you know what I
And that was
mean?
because of the fund balance piece, right? There was
Right,
less
so
of
they
a
couldn't
fund
have any
balance
fund
they
balance.
The
drew.
fund balance, right, was
They didn't
dipped
use that.
into, but to say that there was increased spending on the school budget, I mean,
Yeah, there was actually $127,000 increase in the school. Again, not spending, but the portion that has to come from taxes.
town, right,
Yeah, cause I think their ed subsidies down a little bit as well, you know.
What about this is due to increased allocation to the county, town and school budgets?
I
Is
mean,
that a
that's
little?
more truthful, you know, anybody who's worked on the budgets, you know, I mean, it's just me saying it, but I'm not Elaine Pinkham, who is likely to say, wait a minute, this isn't exactly true. Cause she worked on that budget with the superintendent, so I think there's a way to make it a little bit more accurate.
So one thing I will
Well,
say,
well, certainly there is a big increase due to the county tax increase, which is not just about allocation.
Right,
And
So-
there's an increase because the town voted to approve a higher budget.
right,
So there's an increase there. And
Yeah.
so
Right.
the only point that you're making an exception to is in the phraseology referring to the school. So
right, I think.
I'm sure we
those
can
are-
fix that.
and there,
Yeah, I
and there
agree.
was no intention to.
Oh, I know, I'm just,
So,
you know, in terms of, if John's gonna sign this letter, you know, it wouldn't be accurate to say that the school budget saw an increase in spending, because it is the allocation that she's talking about, but it wasn't an increase in spending, it was a,
Increase in
decrease.
appropriations, an increase
Yeah.
in tax dollars required to support the budget, yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and just to note it.
So
So-
we'll tweak that a little bit.
so we'll tweak, so just to touch base with the board, we do need to get these letters, specifically the assessing update letter
Mhm,
and the reverse side off to the printers by close of business tomorrow.
sure,
So we'll touch base in the morning, get this back up, get something out to the board. When would be a good time for us just to say, if no edits back by,
wanna say noon, 1?
that'll work? Why don't
Yeah.
we say 1 o'clock? That way we can use that as a target just to get it out to, and
Does that work for you, Bronwyn? I
Sure,
suggested
I mean,
one.
I think that we've pointed out the changes that we'd like to
Right.
see. I'm happy with your making them. I don't feel the
Okay.
need to, you know, constantly recheck. I will offer whatever suggestions I have for wording before noon tomorrow. And then I'm happy to just have
Perfect.
you guys do it, because it's important that it go out. That's the biggest
And I agree.
biggest thing. But that's why you have multiple people read letters like this, because they have different reactions, especially if they're
Absolutely.
haven't been working on it every day for 5 days.
and that was the end of my report, so I would turn this over to the finance director for an update.
Okay, so, as you know, our life has been revolving around taxes for the past couple of weeks. But a couple other things are also happening. We did get the note, as, the Employee Health Trust told us we would the beginning of November, to let us know that the, health insurance will be increasing by 9% for next year. And that dental will be going up by 1%. I believe when we did, the actual budget itself, we bumped it up. And I wanna say it was 11%, because
Right.
at that point, Debbie from the Health Trust had said, you're looking at a minimum of 8 to 10. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, just for purposes, we went a little higher. Anyway, so, excuse me, so our portion, or what the town has agreed to pay, goes up by about $184 a month, so. Other than that, we've been working on taxes a lot. And I also somehow foolishly, have scheduled the town audit for next Monday and Tuesday. I intended to take that week off, but they had availability. So we need to grab it. So, our town audit will be next Monday and Tuesday. and then, just a grant update, as Tyler mentioned, Jess is gonna be talking to it. We are done with the old, resiliency, you know, the, level 2 energy audit, grant. We returned that additional $500. It was an additional 500 for, flyers and things like that, that we returned to the state on that. And then lastly, Tyler and I took a class last week, a webinar, through the Maine Revenue Services. They're going to require us to, pull our municipal, well, actually, they're gonna require us to do our municipal valuation return right online and submit it that way, as well as getting our, property tax declarations directly from the main portal rather than them mailing them to us like they used to do. So, anyway, so we just went on for some training on that, so. And other than that, it's just taxes. So that's it for me. That's all I have.
Yeah, the real fun starts later, under new business.
Yeah, so,
And
is any questions at all, anybody?
No.
And, October financials have not been done yet. When I can get to it, I certainly will. I don't expect any problems, but I just haven't gotten the bank recs done, which is I always do the bank recs before I do the financials. Yeah, that's it.
thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Code Enforcement Officer update.
Thank you, Tyler, and hello, everyone. Excuse me. Just a couple things. First is a request for a new private road name. The Smith family are building a new home off of Five Islands Road. Their current road driveway goes to their house is 900 feet long, so they had requested to see if we could name the road, which is allowed. They are requesting the name Izzy Lane, Izzy Lane. There are no other similar names like that in Georgetown. So it's going to ask the board's approval for that.
Did
So
you say
there is- I
there
mean-
are or are not similar names?
There are not similar
Ah.
names.
Okay,
Move to approve the naming of this, road, Izzy Lane.
second,
Cool, all in favor?
All right.
Sounds good.
the nickname my mother rejected.
And secondly, update on Blueberry Hill, the septic system. We have received the easement and other associated paperwork this week from the office of Terrio. It's a law office who's representing Ms. Peterson. In reviewing this whole process, we have learned that this type of action needs to be approved through a town meeting. Whether or not you have a special town meeting or not, but this case is obviously up to you, up to the board, or we wait to the regular town meeting in June. I just add quickly, or for a minute, they do have an option. I haven't presented this to them yet, but there is an option that they could do a holding tank in the interim. A holding tank is a closed watertight tank that has to be at least 1,000 gallons. It holds everything in that tank, doesn't go out or out surface or out into the ground, obviously. And they're constructed so that when they're pumped, and they have to be pumped yearly, it's transported to a licensed facility like the Bath wastewater plant. We do have an ordinance that covers holding tanks. You can only use them for first-time uses, which would be in this case, not in the shoreland, which this isn't in. And there are quite a few requirements, like me continuously checking on it and those type of things. So we do have that option that we haven't presented to them, but I thought I'd just let the board know of that. So I'm happy to if you have any questions.
I thought a holding tank was not an option because the state was not approving any new applications for holding tanks. Am I mistaken?
I think the overboard discharges, maybe that's what they're mixing up. I checked the most recent rule about holding tanks, and they are allowed for first-time users. You can't use them whenever you want. And they're a little bit, well, I guess they're a lot different than an overboard discharge.
Right. So that
And-
is an option as opposed to the septic system on town land.
Right, the only caveat I might add that I don't know, I haven't looked at that property very closely. Just, it has to be like a septic system, a site evaluator, a licensed site evaluator has to see if it can be put there. I know how that connection works with the house and that type of thing, but it sounds like an option that certainly they could look at.
Especially given that they own two abutting pieces of land, so there could be some more space. But I do believe at our last meeting, we mentioned that there would need to be a town meeting vote. And that we were gonna do a check-in as a board to see, was there a desire or a stomach to go for a special town meeting for this item? Or not, that way we at the very least can let the homeowner know and have them not incur more fees and so on in the short term, but.
Right.
Is the board kind of ready to have that check-in and see if,
Well, I'm
what's
not
the-
ready for another town meeting. I mean, I think we've had two special meetings. The last one was not very well attended. I don't, I just don't see the urgency here. This has been going on for over a year. And frankly, if there's an option for a holding tank, I would prefer that. I had understood that it wasn't possible. Most of the other people on Blueberry Hill, I believe, have holding tanks. So it's a comparable solution that doesn't involve digging up the road and inconveniencing neighbors for any period of time. It doesn't involve a precedent for making a particular exception for an individual family when we're not providing a septic field for all of the homes on Blueberry Hill. So that's just my feeling, and I'd be interested to know what you other guys think.
No, if there's an option for the holding tank, look at that, I guess, first. I mean, that would be that as opposed to going through all the other stuff. So I mean, until they know about that one, probably there's no reason to really worry about a special town meeting anyway.
and in the,
I guess my reaction to it is, are they going to be upset with the additional expense of a holding tank?
Well,
I mean,
is that an additional expense? It's got to be pretty
Well, it's the
expensive
same-
to build
The
a
holding tank
septic
would be the
system.
same price as the regular septic tank essentially. Which they could put in there, and if at some point it ends up getting a septic field, you can still use that same tank. It's because we've
Okay.
done that before. But then what they will be incurring is the pumping fees to have the tank pumped out at X number of times,
right,
whether it's once a year, whether it's twice a year, or once a month or whatever. I don't know exactly what it is. Like, don't know what it'll be, so, but that would be the cost that they would be seeing continually.
so it
And
might
the
be a
upfront-
two-step process, they have this in the short term, they do the holding tank, and then, in the long term, since it has to go to town meeting, if we add it to the next town meeting,
in the event that a holding tank, they decided that was not the route they wanted to go,
Right.
or it turns out upon further digging, it's not. Is there a stomach at this board level to hold a special town meeting in the early part of the year? Or is it more June would probably be the soonest town time of a vote?
do we have anything else, in the queue that needs to be?
Well, it gets busy because we started doing budgeting and all that stuff. There's
Right.
a lot of stuff going on.
Right.
So it may be a June. I mean,
Right.
right now, we're looking at, just between now and December, there's no time for
Right.
so it's probably gonna get bumped to. That'd be
Okay.
my,
I guess my
Yeah.
question was, is there anything else in the queue, like we had ARPA funds and the other things that need a special town meeting? I feel like we've already covered
Right,
everything.
And I would say that in the event that these homeowners had gotten the documents the town had been requesting for many, many months, it potentially could have gone to either of those town meetings. Now, we were made aware of this after the fact, so
Right.
open kimono on that front, but we would have came to that determination at a certain point with our attorney anyway, and so there isn't anything in the queue right now, but I just wanted to make sure that when Mike reaches out to the homeowner, if they call the office in the morning, that we're just being upfront with them that, you know, it looks like June is.
Mhm.
At least at this stage, you know, if we turn over a bunch more stones and we're in the same spot, it's very difficult to dig in frozen ground though, come March anyway, February.
Yeah, I
John,
mean,
that's-
I'm in favor of if there has to be a town, if there's a motion that has to be approved at a town meeting, that it should wait until June. And that the only exception to that would be if some other emergency arises that requires us to have a town meeting. But I
Right.
certainly hope that Mike will offer them the option of the holding tank. And with Jonathan's insight that this could be the beginning of and it could be an more immediate solution and to their problem, and a stepping stone towards a more complete septic system if that's what they wish and what the town approves. At the same time, if they would have to have this anyway, like we have a septic tank, that we have a septic field, but we have a tank too, as John says, that's pumped out when it needs to be or when we think it needs to be. It's a lot less expensive than the expense of digging up the road and putting in a septic field across the street. So it's a lot less money up front.
Mhm.
And I don't know how that plays out with having to empty it, but yeah. And I think if that's an option for them legally, that would be important to know before we had a town meeting, even if they were petitioning us to get an easement on the town land.
Thank you, Bronwyn.
So we'll just say we're gonna wait till June, I guess.
All right,
That's right. So Mike, I guess our directive request of you is just to make that an obvious option for them. And in the short term, that's what's going to work from the town's perspective. Because a special town meeting is not in our short term.
Will do. I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
thank you, Mike. And now the last of our updates tonight, before we get into the exciting new business, we have, and this is an exciting update as well, Brian, not to steal any thunder, we have Chief Whalen from Georgetown Volunteer Fire Department to give his monthly update.
Thanks, Tyler. No slide taken. Appreciate it. So start off with some good news tonight. I can say that our engine 3 is finally back from the shop. We got everything put back on it last night. We had 11 people show up for a work party to just hammer it out. We got all the hose put back on, all the equipment. So water, everything's ready to go now, back in service. So we just picked it up this past weekend. So there's no final invoice on that yet, and I will be passing that along when we get it. But yeah, just like to say that's back in, and really happy to have it back. So let's see. I talked to a potential new member for the fire department on Monday morning. I think we're getting a little bit of response from getting the word out. The signboard up at the station. That's where he saw it, and so we had a nice chat, and still kind of wait and see. It's we more of a informational back and forth, not necessarily a job interview per se, but what our expectations are, requirements, that kind of thing. So hopefully it'll pan out long term. Looking forward to that, and I got a couple other leads to chase down here in the next few weeks. A few people to call, and waiting on one other phone call. So it's the word's getting out, and we're getting a little bit of response. So that's right direction kind of thing. So glad to hear that. So since our last update, or my last update to you guys, we've had 10 calls for service in the last month or so. 7 of them have been emergency medical calls, and 3 of them were fire call type calls. And out of those 3 fire calls, 2 were actually on the same evening, where we provided mutual aid up to Arousik. They had a brush fire up in Arousik, so we sent some folks in a truck up there. And weirdly for them, they had a simultaneous car fire, which one of our engines was driving by anyway, and they stopped there and put the car fire out while the brush fire was going on. So providing us some mutual aid to Rousick and helping out when we can. So really proud of everyone who went out for that one. It was a cold night. It was down almost near freezing, but as you guys have noticed, the weather's been so dry lately. It's a real tinderbox out there. So and also related to that, I've had any burn permits have been turned off. I mean, fire danger's been too high anyway, but until we get significant rain and really get things wet back down, there's going to be pretty much no burning in Georgetown. We're discouraging anyone to have little campfires and things like that because it takes very little for things to get out of control, especially when it's this dry outside. So luckily we've been lucky so far. Everybody in town's been really good about being really careful and being really aware of their surroundings. So I appreciate that. We all do. So the last thing I got for you guys tonight is just a update reminder that the fire department's having their informational night on Thursday, December 5th. We're going to host that at the Georgetown Historical Society for anyone who wants to attend in person. And I'm going to be working on a Zoom link to send out for folks to attend virtually if they so choose, if they're out of town or whatnot. So we're going to get going on that. It'll be hopefully a discussion. I'm looking for as many people who are interested to show up to talk about fire and EMS services in Georgetown now and going forward in the future. I'm really looking for input from people all over town, new folks who've been here forever, grew up here. Really want input from everybody to what we should be doing in the future. I can provide as much info as I can. I can come up with solutions and options, but I need to hear from everybody else to find out what the town really wants us to do about this. So hopefully to have a good back and forth. Provide as much info as I can about any questions that get asked, things like that. So if everyone can keep putting the word out to everybody who will listen, we'll hopefully get decent attendance on that. Hoping to do more, moving down the road. I'm not sure on a timeline for those, but I believe this will be a first of hopefully several kind of discussions in this way, so that we can make sure we hear from everybody who wants to have a say in things. So looking forward to that, and that's what we got for an update right now, unless you guys have any questions.
Brian, are y'all soliciting snacks for December 5?
I didn't have anything on the board right now, but if snacks will get people there, we'll find some snacks.
We'll maybe some of us will bring some snacks, so I'll talk to you offline about that.
All right, sounds good.
I don't have any questions, but
Thank you,
All right.
Brian.
All right, thank you guys, appreciate it.
thanks.
All right, and so now there was no old business on the agenda, so the first item of new business would be the setting of a mill rate for the 24-25 tax year. On Thursday, Mary had sent along an email with a summary sheet, some historical overlay, and 5 different mill rates, and I believe had made a recommendation. And so with that, let's dive on in.
So, like Tyler just said, last week I sent you out the overlay. That was just for your informational only, showing that we at one point had a low of 49 and a high of 208. And again, that's from, 2007, 2008, so quite a few years. So in front of you, you have, there are 5 sheets that we had sent on to you. As I had noted in my memo, items 1 through 15 on these sheets will be the same regardless of the sheet. Okay, those are your evaluation, your appropriations of your county tax, so all of those, regardless of which sheet you have, are all the same. Okay, so it's from item 16 or number 16 on that is what changes.
Right.
The state of Maine, as you know, allows us to raise 5% additional in taxes. So that allows you to have a maximum tax rate of 6.082. Okay, and that would be your maximum at 5%. Okay, your minimum tax rate, which would be the lowest that you can raise in order to cover those items that we have approved at town meeting, would be 5.793. Okay, that 5.793 would give you $180.99 in overlay. Okay, and realize that what we in Georgetown use our overlay for is for errors in assessment and abatements, okay? And the other thing that we use that for is to bulk up your undesignated fund balance. You know, anything that is not spent rolls automatically to undesignated fund balance, okay? So, what we've given you here is 5 scenarios. You know, like I said, the last one being, 6.082, 6.02, 5.9, 5.81, and 5.79. So those are there for you to review. My recommendation to you is $6.02. Gives us a overlay of 209,000. I think that we are going to need overlay. I think that we will see a lot of abatement requests come in this year, just as we did in 2003 when we did the reval, we had a stack of them.
Yep.
I like to think that these numbers will stand up and that, Mr. Van Tynen will have no issue with, supporting them as he
Right.
did back then. But I think that in order to protect ourselves, I think we need to,
Well, you've looked at some of the things and found some anomalies, right?
Yeah, we
So-
did, yeah,
so
and we've
you-
got, we fixed a few things before it went out, but there may be others, yes.
You can't
Yeah.
expect to get every single
That's
one
right.
of them, so.
Yeah. So,
I'm comfortable with that number, 6.02.
so,
So Mary, just
that's
for,
where,
just to be sure I understand this correctly, the overlay from 23-24, as in the last fiscal year,
yes,
was $183,000, almost $184,000.
yeah,
And we have 150,000 of that left, which is the other revenue in item number 13 that is
Correct.
offsetting our total obligation, right?
yes,
So it seems like in this year when everything is going up and the valuations are, well, the total valuation of the town is almost doubled. I agree that it's only prudent to have a couple 100,000 in overlay.
Yeah.
And if we don't need it, it comes back to
right,
help offset the next fiscal year taxes.
future tax commitments, yes, this year we
Yeah.
used 150,000 out of our undesignated fund balance. And honestly, a lot was because we didn't have a solid audit at
Right.
that point, so, yeah. So,
Do you have?
No, I'm
What do you
following,
think?
I agree. I mean.
I don't
I
think
have any
anybody's
concerns.
thrilled with it, but I mean, it's
No.
nice that at least the mill rate is going down.
yes,
Right.
that is the significant drop in the mill rate from 9.75 to 6.02.
Right.
That
Not
is
that that will
significant.
matter to anybody when they read their individual bill and it goes up.
Correct.
Myself included, I'm sure.
Is this
Myself included.
is this a worthwhile time just to acknowledge it doesn't affect the mill rate on our decision tonight? But we do have significant amount of properties here in town, state of Maine properties, some land trusts and so on, that because they are exempt, that is a piece of this as well. That mill rate probably would have been lower if we didn't have $11 million at Reed State Park. That
Right.
said, great town, institution, but it is just something to acknowledge that those great benefits do come with some cost.
Right. I think we looked at it and we've got about $56 million out there in tax exempt property between the state of Maine, and they continue to buy more, the state of Maine. And, your nature conservancies and your Boy Scouts and your, this and that and the other thing. There's quite a bit of property out there that's tax exempt,
Mhm.
so. Yeah.
So do we need a
Okay, so,
motion?
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
do you want them,
Uh,
do you want one of us to make it?
Sure.
Sure, yeah.
Well, let's see, where is it?
Well, I can move to accept the recommendation of our finance director for setting the mill rate at 0.0620 with the overlay of 209,955.32.
Second,
Everyone all in favor?
Thank you.
All right.
Now the second part of that is, you've now committed your tax, or you've given us a mill rate. Normally I have you guys set a mill rate on, say, like a Tuesday or Wednesday night, and we mail the taxes that Friday, okay? With this letter that we have, that letter really should have been to them a couple weeks ago if we wanted it. So I'm a little concerned about not being able to get them out on Friday. So, shoot, I had written down what our dates were. Let's see, how long was that?
60 days from.
Yeah, so,
You got a calendar behind you, Mary.
yeah,
Okay.
so, whoops, hold on, sorry. Thought I had it written down somewhere.
60 days from Monday.
Yeah, actually 60 days from Tuesday.
today,
From next Tuesday, the 26th.
Yeah,
oh, from Tuesday.
that, what we're determining is a due date. We just wanna make sure it's an okay
Right.
due date. Doesn't-
January 25th.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yep.
So if we had an actual commitment date of next Tuesday, commitment date is what drives the abatement request. They have 185 days from time of
Okay.
commitment,
Right.
okay? That's why we like to tie the two together, so there's never any question of,
Right.
this is your commitment date, this was your, you know what I mean? So, anyway, we'd like to use that as a date that works for you folks.
January 25.
Yes,
Tuesday.
yes, next
Which
Tuesday with the
triggers-
January, yes. Yeah. And again, if we can get them there Monday and get them out, that's wonderful,
Yeah, I think.
you know,
Have a
just in
buffer
case we
until
can't.
Tuesday, yeah.
okay, and ideally, Tyler and I will be all done with our work this week anyway. The file will go to them, they need 3 days.
Mhm.
Okay, so if we can get it to them Thursday, we can get them out, you know, so that's all.
And their 3 days are also for towns that have 100,000 residents and all of that, so
Correct.
we believe that they'll be able to get it out sooner.
Are you, who do you use, like copies, et cetera, or
High grade,
Yeah. same?
yeah, and I creative something now, but it used to be high grade
So
business.
do we need a motion to commit taxes officially for that date?
Sure, yeah,
So
I
moved,
move that we
Whatever.
commit taxes on Tuesday, the 26th of November.
perfect.
second,
All in favor?
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
And with that, anything else you need, Mary?
I don't think so. Nope.
And Jessica Weller already has her camera on. Jessica, you are our next item, which is seeking approval of a Conservation Commission request to partner with Arousic on a climate resiliency grant. And in sharing the MOU with the board today, I shared that there still was a chance that some of those documents were in flux on changing. And so we would have, once we get approval tonight, hopefully we get approval, we then would give them the authority to sign them before the next meeting, as well as a letter of support. But I didn't want to write that letter of support, Jess, until we knew we had buy-in, but now I'm talking too much and it's your turn. Jess Weller.
Thank you so much. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jess Weller. I'm chair of the Conservation Commission, and I'm here to update you on the grant with the Arousic. Cheryl Swift is also on the call tonight. We've been working really hard on this grant since I last spoke with you on October 15th. And with your approval, we'd like to go ahead and apply for the $175,000 joint grant with Arousic. This grant meets all the community action list items given out by GOPIF, so there will be no match required for either town. Arousic will be the main applicant or the applicant for the grant, and Georgetown will be their partner. This means that funds will be distributed to Arousic. And we discussed this with Mary. And as you see in the MOU, Georgetown will invoice Arousic for a portion of the grant funds, and Mary will be compensated for her times in managing them. Carol White, as Bronwyn mentioned, from CAW and Associates will be our partner with this grant. She's a hydrogeologist who's worked with Westport Island, Long Island, Chebig on similar projects. She'll also handle all the grant reporting through the 24 months of the grant. And so that's what Tyler and Amanda were responsible for last time. I know that was very time consuming for Tyler. He can vouch for that. So she'll be doing all of that for us. The grant has 5 phases with community outreach interwoven. The first phase is a well survey and water quality sampling. This will start in the spring with an online or paper survey for residents collecting information about their wells. And then we'll offer a free well test for those who complete the survey. We've budgeted for up to 500 wells in Georgetown, which is hopefully we can hit that number. The second phase is data analysis and GIS mapping. Sorry.
Can I ask a quick question? Is it first come, first
Yeah.
serve on the well survey? On the well?
No, everyone, we're going to beg and plead everyone to do the well survey. I don't think we'll hit 500.
Okay.
I think Westport hit maybe 2, so I think we'll be lucky if we hit 3, but we're hoping we have amazing participation. So yes, I guess it's first come, first serve, but I don't know that we'll hit that number.
Okay.
So the second phase is data analysis and GIS mapping of wells and septic system. This will be done by Carol and her team, and she'll be looking for patterns related to septic related impacts on wells and saltwater intrusion and road salt impacts and much more. The third phase is community education. Carol's going to run a workshop about teaching the community about our groundwater in Georgetown and best practices to help protect your water supply and how to look at your septic and check that out to make sure it's okay and working. Phase 4 is establishing an aquifer monitoring program here in town. Jessica Meeks from the Maine Geological Survey has a federal grant to establish this program in coastal communities. And she's looking for wells that have been affected by saltwater intrusion or wells that are abandoned and uncontaminated. Tyler's been collecting wells from all over town, and we hope to get at least 4 to 5 wells to participate in that study here in Georgetown. Phase 5 is an emergency water supply assessment. Carol's going to work with members of the community to identify and evaluate the public water sources. So during climate-related weather or disaster events, we know what our water systems are like. So I know we use the school and the community center in disaster times. So we want to check and make sure those wells are working well. And we had proposed to ROUSIC that we would split the money evenly, 75 to each community, and share that $25,000 for the aquifer monitoring program. Since we share the same goals and ROUSIC is the nicest town, they've been very generous in giving us more than our fair share of the funds so that we can test up to 500 wells in town. So this partnership truly is beneficial. I've really enjoyed getting to meet these people. I'm sure Cheryl would say the same. They're just so nice, and they're very invested in doing this study together. I was hoping to have an actual draft of the grant for you to look at. Unfortunately, Carol's wrapping it up, but I'll get it to you guys as soon as I can. But the MOU really does highlight all of the main parts. I wrote it and I tried to cover as much as I could in it. So tonight, as Tyler said, we're looking for approval to go ahead with the last steps in preparing the grant to be submitted in early December. We're asking you to sign the MOU. The ROUSIC Select Board is going to sign it at their meeting, the next one. We're asking for the letter of support from you. We already have one from the ROUSIC Select Board, Allison Hepler, Eloise Vitelli, and the Maine Geological Survey. And we're just so excited about this project. We think it's a great opportunity to get a better handle on our water quantity and quality, which will help with the Select Board, the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and the other town groups planning for our future. So thank you.
So I'd move
Wow.
to approve that we proceed with the grant.
Did I get it all,
Sorry,
Bronwyn?
You got it in there in record time, Jess.
Well, Tyler said 3 minutes, so I was like,
Great job, Jess, by the way.
You woke us all up. I'm happy to second whatever you were moving, Aria.
Okay.
Everybody in favor?
All right.
And I really want to
Excellent job.
commend the folks working on the grant, the volunteers, Cheryl and Jessica. They've taken a lot of time, a lot of effort, and they're doing a great job. We couldn't
Thank
do it
you.
without you.
thank you.
All right, and so we'll work on Jess setting up a time to get that document signed so we can get those off to you. And I will make sure that we get that letter of support as a part of that as well. And this is very exciting. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow night for a 5-minute presentation about preparedness. And with that, John, I believe that sums up all of the business, and I turn this back over to you for public comment.
Is there any public comment?
No public
I don't
comment.
see any.
So the last thing I'd note is that our next select board meeting will be at 7 p.m. Oh, and I see another person joining here at the tail end, but our next select board meeting will be at 7 p.m. versus our regular 6 p.m. And that's to accommodate the rec committee who will
Right.
be meeting right
Okay.
before us on December 3rd.
Okay,
Yeah, that's a busy week. The third, we've got meetings, rec in here,
And
then the fourth
holiday.
is holiday, the fifth is the fire department.
Right, yeah. It's a busy time of year to begin with.
For sure.
And all that, and,
For sure.
yeah.
oh, does that pretty much cover it,
I
then?
think there's a motion to adjourn.
I was just gonna say, I'm not aware we need to go into executive session, so I will move to adjourn this meeting.
And I second with a wish that everyone have a very great Thanksgiving holiday.
Yes, thank you, you too.
Same to you, Bronwyn.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Good night.